on NewsX World as we track these very, very crucial developments from the Middle East. Meanwhile, viewers, shifting focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that US President Donald Trump has stated that he's prepared to impose economic sanctions against Russia if Russian President Vladimir Putin fails to agree to a ceasefire, warning of serious consequences. This comes as Trump is seeking one-on-one talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. Although Zelensky has agreed in principle to such talks, Putin reportedly has not, even though the Kremlin has suggested that it is open to a trilateral meeting taking place. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has also emphasized that no such meeting is currently on the cards as per reports. Meanwhile, US and European officials have been discussing potential security guarantees that Washington might provide Kiev after a hypothetical deal is reached, potentially including support by air or intelligence sharing. Let's in fact listen in to what the US president has had to say.
No, I'd like it to stop. I want to get it to stop. And it will not be a world war, but it will be an economic war. And an economic war is going to be bad. And it's going to be bad for Russia, and I don't want that. Now, I have to also see, because not everybody, Zelensky is not exactly innocent either, okay? It takes two people to tango, and I say it all the time. You got to get them together. I get along with Zelensky now, but we have a much different relationship because now we're not paying any money to Ukraine. Stop that. We're paying money to ourselves. What's happening is NATO is buying all of the equipment and paying in full. But even with that, forget about that. I want to get it stopped because it's a lot of lives that are being lost.
All right, there, of course, viewers, you had to hear what exactly Donald Trump has said. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Jayjeet Bhattacharya. He's the president of CDEPR, a senior economist, joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Interesting statement there by Donald Trump. He's threatened that he's prepared to impose economic sanctions against Russia if Russian President Vladimir Putin does not agree to come to the negotiating table with the US and Ukraine. Where do you think this is heading next?
It is to be seen how much of impact such sanctions will have on Russia, because there's already been a large number of significant sanctions that have been applied on Russia. And the overall exports of Russia has still stayed at roughly $500 billion, about $500 billion, a little less than that. So the series of sanctions from 2022 February onwards has not had much of an impact on Russia. In fact, if you look at the exports from Russia to US in 2021, it was about $17 billion. Right now it stands at $31 billion. So it actually went up. And if Trump is serious and the US administration is serious, then it should have some impact. But that means that everything from Russia needs to be stopped from being imported to really have that impact. What has been happening till now is that the sanctions have been selective. What is needed for the European Union or what is needed for the US, those materials have not been sanctioned. And therefore, we see the trade pattern that we see right now, where trade with US has actually gone up. Clearly, there will be an impact on Russia if these sanctions are taken through. I think for sure there'll be pressure on Russia to consider the ceasefire conversations and the peace conversations that are happening, because without these pressures, there is really no pressure on Russia. Militarily, it's doing. It has an upper hand on the ground, and therefore it would like to continue this war in order to get more territory. And therefore a sanction on Russia will be one more lever on Russia to bring it to a serious conversation on the table.
And there's another very interesting aspect in Donald Trump's statement. He's stated that it takes two to tango, but meanwhile he's also pointed out that security guarantees for Kiev have been secured, and it's not the US taxpayer that is going to pay for it this time around. It is the European Union, the NATO allies that will be pumping money to buy US arms that will be used to secure Ukraine. Do you think Trump's move in this particular deal, in this particular negotiation that he held with Zelensky and the NATO leaders just a couple of days back, has been a major win for the US arms industry?
Well, it is, but we also need to note that this was already happening. The European Union was buying arms from the American suppliers and was transferring them to Ukraine, because clearly the European Union arms manufacturers are in a bit of a decline. The American arms manufacturers have an upper hand. They provide better quality equipment because they have been continuously engaged in wars for a very, very long time. In fact, ceaselessly since 1945. And obviously before that, there was World War II, where again, it was American arms manufacturers which were providing much of the arms that was needed. And therefore, this was already happening. Perhaps what will happen is this will get accelerated, where there will be a lesser payment by the US administration in buying these arms and providing them to Ukraine. Also, what will obviously happen is that there will be a focus on made in Europe arms, and therefore there will be a fillip to the European arms companies, and therefore a lot of procurement may shift from the American arms to the European arms if the European governments are funding it.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us. We're tracking more such important developments as far as Trump's statements are concerned.